With the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious, I'm Farooq Abdullah with the History of English Literature. I hope that you all are doing fine, you all are happy, healthy, and you all are okay. And you people have been washing your hands for 20 seconds, of course. And I will say that keep washing your hands, keep following the SOPs suggested by the government. Well, the topic that today we are going to discuss is Elizabethan drama. In English literature, Elizabethan drama is also called as romantic drama. So, if there happen to come any question regarding romantic drama, so you should not get confused that what is this romantic drama. Same Elizabethan drama is also called romantic drama. So, here in this lecture today, we are going to discuss the important dramatists of this age, their chief contribution towards English literature, English drama, and their major works. So this lecture is all about romantic drama, or this lecture is all about Elizabethan drama. And I always ask my students that you must have pen and paper with you people, so that you may keep jotting down, keep writing down, keep noting down the important points that I'll make you write during the course of my lecture. So I will suggest you people to pause this video right over here and get your pen with you, get your paper with you. And the first thing that you should write on that paper is the word tragedy. What is this tragedy? First, we should, make our concepts clear about tragedy. Then we'll move further towards Elizabethan drama. You know that the chief contribution of the dramatists of Elizabethan era towards English literature, towards English drama was tragedy. Tragedy was not for the first time that was being written or that was being presented on the stage. This tragedy was quite famous, it was quite popular in classical age during the time of Plato, during the time of Aristotle. I mean that 500 years BC, before Christ, before Jesus Christ, 500 years before Jesus Christ, the writing of tragedies and presenting them on the stage, that was quite popular. And many important and many prominent and many significant tragedy writers were there in classical age, like Sophocles, like Euripides, like Aeschylus. These were three prominent tragedy writers during classical age. When I say classical age, I'm talking about Greek era. So this classical literature is also the part of your syllabus, but you will read classical literature in your next semester or after that. So this is not we are not going to go into the depth of classical literature. I'm just going to make you familiar with this tragedy. That tragedy was not something new. Tragedy was accustomed in Greek era, but as we say that Renaissance is the revival of Greek art, Renaissance is the revival of Greek literature. So the writers and dramatists of Elizabethan era actually revived that tragedy, revived that branch of the play. You know that a play has got different branches. History plays are there, comedies are there. Tragedy is also a branch of drama. This is also a branch, this is also a type of drama that became very popular, that became much famous during Elizabethan era. Now, what is this tragedy? What we call tragedy? Be attentive. I think that I have made you people write this word, this term tragedy. Tragedy is a story of sad, serious, sorrowful, tragic events and happenings that a hero encounters, that a protagonist encounters in a play, and it has an unhappy ending. I'm going to tell you in short, this is a very vast topic that we cannot cover it up in this short time crunch. We cannot cover the entire this only this one term tragedy. We cannot cover it up over here. So in short, I will say that tragedy is a story that has an unhappy ending. There is a death, there is a suicide, there are tragic events, tragic happenings, sad stories there, and the hero of the tragedy, the protagonist of the tragedy, falls from grace to disgrace, falls from a higher place toward down in the dumps. So that's all about tragedy. You people might have watched that drama serial that was on air previous year. I guess that each and everybody from you people might have watched that drama, मेरे पास तुम हो. In that drama serial, there is a character Mavish. Her character is tragic. You people might have seen that how she falls from grace to disgrace. How and the character of Danish is also tragic. He meets his end, he meets his doom. And the same way the character of, what was the name of that gentleman? I'm not recalling in my mind currently. Yes, Shahwar was his name. Shahwar, his character is also tragic. So that's tragedy. And the merit of the tragedy is that it raises the feelings of pity and fear in your heart. You feel pity for Mavish, you feel pity for Danish, you feel pity for Shahwar. That's actually, the outcome of tragedy, that it raises the feelings of pity and fear in your heart. Fear, why fear? Fear in the sense that because you yourself become the part of that story. You do not remain you. You become Mavish. You do not remain you. You become Danish because you also become the part of that story. That's why you get afraid, you get disappointed, you become doleful, you become sorrowful. Same thing could have happened with you people as well, That's why you get afraid. So tragedy actually raises the feelings of pity and fear in your heart. And I have said you people that important and major contribution of the dramatists of Elizabethan age was that they introduced tragedy in English literature. And the first tragedy that was written in English literature, write down the name of this tragedy. The name of this tragedy was Gorboduc. Gorboduc, G-O-R-B-U-D-U-C, Gorboduc. This tragedy was written by Thomas Sackville. He has also written an important poem as well. That's allegorical poem. The name of that poem is The Mirror of Magistrates. The Mirror for Magistrates. Yes, The Mirror for Magistrates. He has also written this famous poem. This is an allegorical poem. And he is the writer of the first tragedy that was ever written in English literature. You have got this point clear about tragedy. And what was there in medieval age with the drama? So what was drama like in medieval age? In medieval age, the drama was not like so enthusiastic. There was no, romance in the drama of medieval age. Like mystery plays were there, miracle plays were there, the stories of Bible were presented on the stage, and main characters who were going to perform different roles, they were actually the parsons, the priests, and the officials of the church. They were acting as characters on the stage for those plays. But now in Elizabethan age, the drama got another dimension. It became very popular among the people. And coming toward the major writers, the prominent writers of Elizabethan age, you should also keep a couple of things more clear in your minds because there happen to come some conceptual questions in your examination as well, that what's unity of time, what is unity of place, what is the unity of action, or what are three unities which are there in classical drama, or which are there in the tragedies. So I should tell you, I should make it clear that there are three unities that were suggested by Aristotle in his Poetics, that a dramatist, a tragedy writer should follow three unities while he is writing a tragedy. What are those three unities? Three unities are unity of time, unity of place, and unity of action. Now, what's this unity of time? Aristotle says that a play, a tragedy should end in one day, in one round of the sun. It must, all the events and happenings of the play, of the tragedy should be completed. Everything should be accomplished in one day. Now, what happens generally in our dramas that we see on, that we watch on television, just take Ahd Wafa. In Ahd Wafa, when Ahd Wafa starts, the major characters are, they are intermediate, they are at intermediate level. And when the play ends, I think that 10 years might have passed, because those characters, after doing their intermediate, now they have become professional. One of them has become soldier, one of them has become politician, one of them has become CSP officer. So it might have taken them 8 to 10 years to reach on that dignified place. So what Aristotle says, that your play, your drama should cover the span of only one day. That is the unity of time. Unity of place is that your drama should be staged at one place. You must not even change the settings. Now, what happens with our dramas is that some of the scenes are in Murree, some of the scenes are in Abbottabad, some of the scenes are there in Karachi, some of the scenes are in Lahore. So Aristotle suggests that you should follow the unity of place, means to say that there must be one setting where your entire play, where the entire events and happenings of the play should be staged. And unity of action is that there must not be subplots. There must not be subplots in your story. There must be one main plot in the story. Now, if why I am giving the reference of TV dramas, I'm giving you the reference of TV dramas because you people watch TV dramas, and out of TV dramas you can get a lot of things. That's why I'm giving you again the reference of Ahd Wafa, to make you people clear about the unity of action. Is that I would say that there are, I think, 4 plots. There is a love affair of one character who becomes soldier. There's a love affair of one character who becomes a politician. And I think that 3 to 4 plots are there in that story. Why does Aristotle suggest that there must be only one plot and there must be unity of action? He suggests so because the attention of the audience must not be diverted somewhere else. And let me tell you people, this is very important that you must keep in mind, that Shakespeare didn't follow these unities as these were suggested by Aristotle in his Poetics. Shakespeare, doesn't follow the unity of time. He doesn't follow the unity of place. He doesn't follow the unity of action. Only a couple of plays are there, like Tempest, where you can see that there is a unity of place. Well, talking about these basic concepts, now we should move ahead. We should now talk about the major dramatists of this age, Elizabethan age, this Elizabethan drama. University wits. You might have encountered with this phrase, university wits. who were the university wits. University wits have a very good contribution, a major contribution towards Elizabethan drama. And let me tell you people that these were professional writers. Before university wits, it was not custom in England that the people were writing something as their career. These were the first people who made writing as their career, as their profession. Before them, writing was considered to be a hobby. That was not a profession by the poets and by the writers of medieval age. They didn't write the different things, poems, plays as their career. That was their hobby. But these university wits, they were trained people. They were educated at University of Oxford and University of Cambridge. These people were trained over there. They were educated over there. So they had a proper training. They had a proper coaching of writing the plays. So that's why these are called university wits. And the names of university wits are, Lilly, Green. You may write down these names: Lilly, Green, Grene, Nash, 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 Lodge, Lodge, Lodge. Christopher Marlowe himself was the part of university wits. And there is another fellow, Peele, Peele. And there is another fellow for whom it's not confirmed that whether he was educated at university or not. Nothing is sure about his education. Thomas Caird, K-Y-D, Thomas Caird or Thomas Caird. This is not Qaid-Azam wala Caird, K-Y-D, Thomas Caird. Major contribution of Thomas Caird is that he wrote a very famous tragedy, the Spanish tragedy. And Spanish tragedy was so phenomenal that it has been translated into different European languages. He also used blank verse as well. So he out of university wits, he's quite famous, he's quite popular. And the other one is Peele. He wrote 12 plays, and he also introduced the musical quality in blank verse. So all these university wits gave a new dimension to English drama. So after having a review of university wits, coming towards the next writer, the next dramatist, well, we must talk about Christopher Marlowe as well. Christopher Marlowe was also among the university wits. He also took writing as his career. He was born in 1564. Both Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare were born in the same year, 1564, and he died in 1593. And let me tell you people that how did he die? He was killed in a bar in a fight with his friends at the age of 29. And at the age of 29, he had become a phenomenal writer. He had become a great writer. He had written 4 plays of first magnitude. His first play was Tamburlaine. Tamburlaine is about a Scythian shepherd who tends to become a scourge of God, who tends to become a terror for the world, a horror for the world. So his downfall, his tragedy, the tragedy of Tamburlaine. And then the most important drama for which Christopher Marlowe is quite famous all across the world is Dr. Faustus. I think that I was telling you once in the class that Dr. Faustus is a hero of this play, and he sells his soul to the devil and for worldly pleasure, for worldly pursuits, for maximum knowledge, for unlimited power. So he sells his soul to the devil. And there are famous lines of this play. Philosophy, this is what Dr. Faustus speaks in front of the Mephistopheles, in front of the devil, that philosophy is odious and obscure. Divinity is the basest of 3, harsh, uncontemptible, and vile. 'Tis magic that hath ravished me. Christopher Marlowe is a true man of Renaissance. His characters, which he presents on the stage, his characters showcase the spirit of Renaissance. Love of learning, love of power, love of wealth. So everything, enthusiasm, zeal, zest, hankering after money, hankering after name, hankering after fame. This is all what we see in the characters of Christopher Marlowe. So he was the true champion of his age, the age of Renaissance. The third play of Christopher Marlowe is Edward II, and the fourth one that he wrote was Jew of Malta. And another important point here is that often this question is asked in the universities. This phrase is quite common, that no Marlowe, no Shakespeare. If there had been no Marlowe, there might not have been any Shakespeare. So why is it called so? We'll discuss it when we'll be discussing Shakespeare. We'll come toward this point, that why this phrase is very common, that no Marlowe, no Shakespeare. Why is it called that? If there had not been any Marlowe, there might not have been any Shakespeare. Coming towards the next dramatist of Elizabethan era is, of course, none other than William Shakespeare. So, I think that I will not be able to do justice with Shakespeare. I'm nobody to give my commentary on the greatest writer of English literature, ever greatest writer of English literature. I don't think so that I'll be able to do justice with Shakespeare. But in this short span of time, I will share with you people whatsoever it can be done in this short span of time. Shakespeare was born, as I was saying, that Christopher Marlowe and Shakespeare both were born in the same year, 1564, and he died in 1616. And the kind of art that he has created, it changed the course of English literature 180 degree out of phase. He has done a tremendous job in English drama, and also he has written sonnets as well. He has written 154 sonnets, but the work that he has done for English drama, that is matchless, that is unprecedented. Little is known about his early age. Least is known about the early life of Shakespeare. He came to London and he started working in different plays as an actor. This is what the critics say about Shakespeare, and nothing is known about his initial background, that from where did he get education, or even if he got any sort of education or not. Even some of the critics say that he was not at all educated person. He didn't get proper or formal education anywhere. So how can it be possible that a person who doesn't have any academic qualification, a person who doesn't have any training, a person who doesn't have any know about drama, he is writing the drama of first magnitude? How can it be possible? But it became possible, whether there is a factor behind it or not. Rather, critics are not sure about it, that what was the early life of Shakespeare like. So he also wrote important tragedies, the tragedies which became phenomenal in English literature. Names of his important tragedies that he has written: King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, and of course it is Hamlet. Well, Shakespeare creates godlike characters. I say that as God Almighty has created human beings here on the earth, on this planet. In the same way, Shakespeare also creates characters. He is also a creator. He creates characters, he creates them on the surface of the sheet, and those characters are really living characters. When you see them, when you happen to encounter with them, you see that these are really living characters. And that famous soliloquy, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of trouble, and by opposing end them, to die to sleep no more. And by a sleep we end the heartache and thousand natural shocks that bodies are to be or not to be. The question of existence, Ghalib as puts it, Ghalib as says that, he says, न था कुछ तो खुदा था, कुछ न होता तो खुदा होता, दबोया मुझको होने ने, न होता मैं तो क्या होता. The question of existence, to be or not to be. When you read his characters, when you go through his plays, at that time you come to realize that how prominent writer he is, how great writer he is. And other plays like King Lear, like Othello, all these are tragedies. Shakespeare also wrote history plays as well. Shakespeare also wrote comedies as well. And Shakespeare also wrote tragi comedies as well. And one thing that we must probably we might skip that thing, that we were discussing that no Marlowe, no Shakespeare. Why is it called? It may be a lengthy question, a long question in your examination as well, that describe this statement. If there had not been any Marlowe, there might not have been Shakespeare. Had there not been any Marlowe, there might not have been any Shakespeare. No Marlowe, no Shakespeare. What does it mean? It means that the tragedies that Christopher Marlowe has written, Shakespeare follows the same pattern of the tragedies. The names of the tragedies of Christopher Marlowe are on the names of the heroes of those tragedies. In the same way, the names of the tragedies of Shakespeare are on the names of the heroes of those tragedies, as King Lear is the hero of King Lear, as Hamlet is the hero of Hamlet, as Macbeth is the hero of Macbeth, as Othello is the hero of Othello, as and in the same way, if we talk about the dramas of Christopher Marlowe, Dr. Faustus is the hero of Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine is the hero of Tamburlaine. So I mean that the names of the plays are on the names of the heroes of the tragedies. So how can it be a coincidence? How can it be just a chance that by chance Shakespeare was giving the names of his tragedies, he was entitling his tragedies on the names of his protagonists, on the names of his heroes? How can it be possible? How can this similarity be possible? And another similarity is that when you are reading Edward II, the play of Christopher Marlowe, and Shakespeare has also written Richard II and Richard III and The Merchant of Venus, there are a lot of similarities. Merchant of Venus written by Shakespeare, Richard III written by Shakespeare, Richard II written by Shakespeare, and Edward II written by Christopher Marlowe. So the other three plays like Merchant of Venus, Richard II and Richard III, they seem to be the sequel of Edward II. It seems that this is not Shakespeare who is writing Macbeth. This is Christopher Marlowe who is writing Macbeth. This is not Shakespeare who is writing Othello. This is Christopher Marlowe who is writing Othello. This is not Shakespeare who is writing King Lear. This is Othello who is writing King Lear. So are great similarities between Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, and some of the critics go to the extent of saying that Shakespeare didn't ever exist even. There was no Shakespeare at all. Actually, it was Christopher Marlowe who was writing in the name of Shakespeare. The tragedies like King Lear, the tragedies like Hamlet, the tragedies like Othello. It was Marlowe who was writing these tragedies. Some of the critics go to the extent of this saying. And they say that Christopher Marlowe was not killed at the age of 29. He was alive, and it was Marlowe who was writing the further tragedies. That's why we find so much similarity between Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare. And the blank verse that was used by Christopher Marlowe and that was perfected by by William Shakespeare, that is also, we can say that this is also a great similarity between Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare. I think that we have gone beyond 30 minutes. We should sum it up. We should make it precise enough. But we still one dramatist remaining, Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson is the last but not least dramatist of Elizabethan era. And it's quite interesting to note that Shakespeare acted, as I'm saying that Shakespeare was also an actor as well, and in one of the plays Shakespeare played the role of a girl as well. And in one of Ben Jonson's plays, Shakespeare acted as an actor, and Ben Jonson was quite opposite to Shakespeare. Shakespeare was imaginative, Shakespeare was philosophical, but as far as Ben Jonson is concerned, so Ben Jonson was a realist. He was a classicist. He was a classical writer, and Shakespeare was a romantic writer. And another difference between Shakespeare and Ben Jonson was that during that time nobody knew Shakespeare. Everyone knew Ben Jonson. So Ben Jonson was quite popular among the masses. He was quite popular among the public. But Shakespeare was hidden behind his work, and Shakespeare didn't get his plays printed. He was so busy in presenting his characters on the stage that he couldn't get his works printed. On the other hand, Ben Jonson was a classical scholar. He wrote comedies, he wrote tragedies, he wrote his work Walpole is quite famous. His work Every Man Out of His Humor and Every Man in His Humor, these are very important works of Ben Jonson. So this is important to note that Shakespeare had acted in one of the plays of Ben Jonson. And another important point is that Ben Jonson was quite popular during that time. Ben Jonson was quite famous in that time, and at that time nobody knew Shakespeare. The works of Shakespeare were published after the death of Shakespeare in 1616. His works were published. So it was really a very short time, and I often say in my lectures, if I deliver to my intermediate classes, that we cannot fulfill the needs and requirements and the demands of physical classes. We are trying our level best to make you people understand. We are trying our level best to keep in touch with you people so that you people may not forget the things. And you, the students of BS, I will again say that your final term examination will be held in the mid of Feb. So you are not having enough time with you people. Your next semester will start from 1st of March. So keep studying extensively. The kind of nights that nowadays we have. So these are long nights. So you can have extensive study during these nights, and keep studying, keep writing, stay happy, stay safe. God bless you all. I hope that you might have got this lecture. If you have got any inconvenience, if you have got any query, if you have got any trouble, you may ask in WhatsApp group, as well as you may ask me individually. And if still your problem is not addressed, the notes that I have sent to you people, go through those notes. I do hope that inshallah you will be having all your queries addressed. God bless you all. Allah Hafiz.